Eldest daughter. I want to welcome you all and thank you for coming today. We have a few formal things to start off with, and then we're going to be giving people a chance to share their memories of my dad, and I invite everyone to take their opportunity to do that. And then we'll be closing with a brief video, and then we'll be inviting everyone back to the farm, to my mother's home. Lynn is sitting up front here if you haven't had a chance to see her yet today. And we'll be having some cake and coffee and visiting at the house after. We're going to start off with two traditional Jewish prayers today, and if Mr. V. Langer could begin for us, that'll be the first prayer that we're going to hear today.
I work. It's very traditional in the Jewish religion to say one prayer, and that's the Shema. Because I thought so much of a husband, it tightens me up to have to say it. But it's Shema Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Leolam, Moed. That's the traditional prayer for the dead. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you very much. My father also had another Jewish prayer that was special to him. It was something that he made sure was said at his mother's funeral. And so my Aunt Maria is going to read that prayer for us today. With my father's brother, David.
I also got a little emotional. Ian was a great guy. Very sweet, very caring. So I'm going to read the Hebrew.
I'll read the English.
Yitkarei Vitkarkesh Yushel Rabbi.
May his great name grow, exalted, and sanctified. And everybody please say Amen.
Amen.
Bama Divrasha Kitrit Utai.
In the world that he created as he willed,
Vala Yam Yamakatitu Bid Kara Akon Yakan Hon.
may he give reign to his kingship in your lifetimes and in your days.
Un Vikai Dekol Biet Yisrael.
And in the lifetimes of the entire family of Israel.
Bagala Uvish Man Kariv Vimru.
Swiftly and soon, now say,
Amen. Yishrei Shami Rabba Mavakara Lalam Ul Alaman Almaya.
and this means, Amen, may his great name be blessed forever and ever.
Yit Baraka Vishra Taba Vit Puru Vit Rahoman Vit Nasai.
Blessed, praised, glorified, exalted, extolled,
Vit Hadar Vit Halal Vit Halel Shemei Kedusha.
mighty, praised, and lauded the name of the Holy One.
Bereku.
Blessed is he.
Lalai Min Kol Birkata Vishrata.
Beyond any blessing and song,
Tush Bishata Vinik Mata Damiran Balma Vimru.
praise and consolation that are uttered in the world, now say,
Amen.
everybody, Amen.
Amen.
Yishalama Rabba Min Shamaya.
May there be an abundant peace from heaven,
Vashem Alin Valkosh Rishrael Vimru.
and life upon us and upon all of Israel, now say,
Amen.
Amen.
Osei Shalom Bimromava, Hush Yahash Shalom.
He who makes peace in his heights, may he make peace.
Alem Valo Kish Vishrael Bimro.
Upon us and upon all of Israel. Now say everyone.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to see a special presentation from members of Dad's Magic Group. So if the gentlemen who are going to do the broken wand ceremony can come forward, please.
Thank you. I knew Ian for about 10 years, and I really appreciated his knowledge of magic, and the magicians in the room would appreciate that also, that if you had a problem cleaning up a routine, I would run it by Ian, and most of the time he had some result that would help me perform the thing better. And would all the magicians in the room please stand up? Today we gather in the name of God, the Creator of all that exists, to give tribute to Ian Sutz, a member of International Brotherhood of Magicians in Leesburg, Florida, 258. Ian was born June 2nd, 1950 in Brooklyn, New York, and we now participate in this moment that we may offer our deep respects to him. Ian, since time immemorial, the wand has been the symbol of power which has decimated those who work within the art of magic. As long as you wielded this wand, life flowed amazingly and creatively through the pleasure-giving acts you presented. Without its master to wield it, the wand is useless to the world. It becomes but a piece of wood and a memory to those close to you. I break the wand, place it right over there. Now we ask you, O God, that we may share this happiness that Ian gave others through his skills of legerdemain by utilizing our talents, not only for ourselves, but for all those who come before us. Finally, may we be of comfort to the family of Ian, because there is no greater act in life than to love more fully and more frequently. Thank you. And the magicians, if anyone looks around, we're all here. These are all representatives of IBM Ring 258. That's International Brotherhood of Magicians, and which he was a member and vice president here several years ago. And again, I know some of the guys want to come and say something. Again, if I ever had a question about magic, I would run it by Ian, and he had something to help me out with it. And I'm going to sit this down. Anybody else wants to come up? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. This is the portion of our program we want to invite people to come up. Several people have mentioned wanting to share a few stories. Maybe someone doesn't want to go first. If I need to walk the mic back to anyone, I can do that as well.
Thank you, Rachel. My name is Dan Dyer. I ate a pint of ice cream last night. I almost went into a second pint. And, 2 for 1 at Publix. But for the last portion of the weekend and right up until now, I've been staring into the computer where I work, wondering, what's the problem? Well, I lost a good friend. We lost a good friend, and the community has lost a good magician. And when I moved to Lake County from Orlando, there was a magician in Orlando called Roy Frommer. He said, when you get up in Lake County, you gotta look up Ian. I said, okay, we'll do. Now, did you folks all know that Ian was a great popcorn maker? He was probably one of the best popcorn makers, and that's where I found him, in the middle of Leesburg at the theater making popcorn. And there began a relationship 23 years ago with Ian. And we became very tight. Ian will be the first to tell you that he never started in magic like most of us when we were 8 years old, growing up with that magic kit. But he came in later, up in northern New York, and he was a great influence on a circle of magicians who have now become world renowned. There was a circle of magic and a circle of thought up there, up in the Borscht Belt, that has gone internationally with the magic to this day. And Ian was he was right in the center of that, and he was a great force in that. Ian adopted the name Magic Ian, and he said, he would always say that if you look at the last 3 letters in the word magician, there lies his name. His mother and father wanted him to be electrician, becoming a magician. And we are really glad that he did. There's a deep hole in my heart, but I know, alas, that Ian leaves us yet again wondering, because he was a magician's magician, and yet again he has left us with a sense of wonder, thereby making us all a little bit more wonderful. Ian, I am sure, knows the answer to the greatest secret of all. As we sit here and stand here and wonder, he has the answer. And that gives me a sense of great peace, that all of those answers are answered for him at this moment, and he knows the secret of all secrets. And that gives me great satisfaction. I'm grateful that I know him, and I'm grateful that I'm part of the family. And with that, I say goodbye, old friend, and the magic will always live on. I saw some of it being performed today with Aiden, doing one of Ian's routines that has gone national. And Aiden will carry on. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Danny. There's that Roy Fromer, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. I knew he had moved to Florida, but I have some great memories of Roy and Dad back in Middletown, New York, putting on the Magician of the Year contest at Temple, Israel. And year after year, and I was going to say, you're shaking your head, I know you were there. That the Magician of the Year contest was amazing, and I got to see some great guys and a few women perform some awesome tricks. It's a great way to grow up. Do we have anybody else who'd like to come forward?
Carol?
There's time for everybody.
I'm Brian Weller, and before I say a few words, I just want to say that only the creative mind of Ian could turn my son into a floating dreidel. We had a lot of fun. I first met Ian in 2004, and it was out at Bevel's Corner Flea Market, and he didn't know I was into magic. I didn't know he was into magic, but he had a little lapel pin of a rabbit jumping out of a hat with a magic wand that he wore on his collar. So I see his lapel pin, and I said, "Oh, you do magic?" And you know, as magicians, a lot of people do magic, but we can say that few are magicians. And so he goes, "Why? Or you do magic?" And for the next hour and a half, we quizzed each other step by step by step, and at the end of that conversation, I realized what a wealth of knowledge and almost a walking encyclopedia of magic. And that started a almost 10-year friendship, and I had the pleasure of carpooling with Ian to the monthly meetings. And he'd drive, I'd drive, we'd switch up. And it was real funny. I really look forward to that because when Ian would get into the car, if he was going to do a strong presentation for the after meeting when we perform a magic trick, he would only say, I'm going to do something with cards. I'm going to do something with ropes. And vice versa, if I thought I had a strong presentation that night, we would say the same, yeah, it's a little something. You'll see. But on the flip side of the coin is he would get in the car sometimes, like, I couldn't find nothing, I don't know what I'm going to, and we would spend an hour driving to Leesburg, kicking around what we're going to do, and if some of our magic friends were in that car, the conversations that we had coming and going, and especially after the presentations, it takes a true friend to say that maybe it wasn't good, that maybe it wasn't as great as you thought it was, or it would be a whole lot stronger if, and we had such a strong bond that neither of us would be upset or angry, and that we knew that would only strengthen our hobby and art and craft with a great critique. And it's much sorrow the magic community, and I feel I lost a mentor and a great friend, and my condolences are with you, Lynn, and family.
I didn't always talk a lot about Dad doing magic. It came up in conversation. Sometimes I would mention it, but it's or someone would say, "What does your dad do?" Well, I could have said, "Dad did a lot of things." I mean, he was an entrepreneur, an inventor, a writer, a teacher, a small business owner, and magic. There was this thread of magic running through all of it. In college, I brought home different friends, and when I was in college, that was when he had the 2 movie theaters and also Lynn's Leesburg Inn, as well as the magic store in downtown Leesburg. So we had a few different things going, and I would bring different friends home from Gainesville, and we would hang out at the house and use the pool and go to the movie theater and eat at the restaurant and generally drive my dad crazy, and then we'd go back to Gainesville. And I brought one girlfriend home, a sorority sister home one weekend, and she hadn't known me that long. And I brought her down, and so we stopped by the main movie theater, the Tropic Cinemagic there on the main street in Leesburg. And so Dad, as he will do, is when people come to visit, he would break out some tricks. So he starts doing magic, and she's watching, and she says, "Wow, you're really good. You should do this like professionally or something." And I just said, "Oh gosh." And Dad just kind of smiled and kept doing tricks, and then later on I kind of filled her in a little bit, and she was very angry with me for not prepping her appropriately ahead of time. But it just, Dad was Dad, and Dad did magic. It wasn't like it was always there. It was something that from a little girl, when he started doing magic, then that was who Dad was. He was the magician. So it seemed like people would just know. Would anyone else like to come up?
I'm Ian's brother. I'm David. I'm the youngest, or was anyway. And, well, I have a younger sister.
That's true.
I'm going to tell you folks stuff about Ian that you probably don't know. There were 3 of us. My brother's the oldest. I have a sister who was older, and then myself. And my mom was a single mom. My father had passed away early on, and my brother took the role of father. So he helped raise me. And I miss him. But the things he taught me, he taught me how to be kind to people. He always cared. And his heart was as big as his body. But beyond that, he taught me a lot of things. He taught me how to make my mom's car disappear. She'd come home from work, and we'd push the car out of the driveway and go for a ride. And he had to take me with him, otherwise I'd tell. So that was cool. He taught me, let's see, he was 6 years older than me, so he was 18 and I was 12. And when we would go out at night, because my mom was working, he'd have to take me with him because he couldn't leave me home. So I learned how to play pool really well as a 12-year-old. And he used to set people up where we'd put a quarter on the end of the pay pool table, and whoever had the next quarter was next. And they would come and say, who's next? And it would be me, and they'd be playing me for money. Of course, he would have the money. And he taught me how to whip people because they said, oh, a 12-year-old kid, what do you know? But he taught me how to play pool. He taught me how to bowl because when we were in the pool ball, we were at the bowling alley. He did teach me how to drive. He taught me how to hotwire a car. He taught me all the good stuff. When he first started magic, he had a retail store, and oh my God, what a mess. If any of you know my brother, he's not a very organized individual. He never was. He had stuff in his pockets all the time, and it could be money, it could be receipts, it could be credit cards, it could be who knows. And that's the way he ran his life. He was totally unorganized. It was chaos, but it was fun chaos. You just never knew what to expect. You folks are a select group because you knew where you stood with him. He either loved you or he hated you. It was pretty simple. He pulled no punches. He told you the truth. If you liked him, you were a special person. So I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you for coming.
Dad stories. The stories that I have, I got into theater because of my dad. I got into writing because of my dad. There's a lot that I do in my professional life as a professor that I credit my father for giving me those skills. And people say, well, how did you do this? How did you do that? And I say, well, I was a little girl and my dad put me up on stage and in a way we went. And that was a pretty rich legacy that he imparted to me. That and just being the character that those of you who knew him know that he was. One of my girlfriends here today has a memory of us from college. And again, I always brought friends home from college. And then one time, my best girlfriend comes home and we brought her boyfriend with us. Because as many kids as we could pack in the car, we would. And so we're all getting ready for bed, and my girlfriend and her boyfriend are on the couch, and they're, young 20-somethings, they're cuddling, they're not ready to call it a night yet, and I'm upstairs getting ready for bed, and I hear my dad's voice, and I hear people talking, and then I hear this kind of nervous laughter, and then I hear the unmistakable sound that a shotgun makes when you do that action. And I think, oh my God, what on earth? So I walk out on the balcony, looking over the living room, and there's my dad downstairs with a shotgun. And he says, well, I think that I heard a cockroach out here. And I'm like, so you're going to kill it with a bazooka? What on earth, Dad? So really what it was is that he wasn't going to let my girlfriend be unchaperoned with her boyfriend in his house. Because, the girl's virtue had to be safe in his house. So, classic dad story. Would anybody else like to come up? Holding on to you, Dave.
My name is Wayne Hughes, and I've known Ian, I guess, probably longer than anybody except maybe Lynn. I met Ian back in the magic shop. Oh, yeah, that's right. I guess I've known Ian close to 40 years. I grew up in the magic shop with him when I found out there was a shop there. And him and I and Rudy Kobe and Jeff McBride hung out there for years in that magic shop. For those of you who don't know, Jeff and Rudy are pretty big sized names in magic. Anyway, I wasn't going to say it, but Dave, you're right. The shop was a little messy, but Ian knew where everything was. And there was times you'd be in there and somebody'd be buying a sponge ball trick, and you'd say, hey Ian, they want this trick, but there's only 4 of the sponge balls, you need 5. And he would say, well, look under the book on the second shelf around those silks. And sure enough, that missing sponge ball would be sitting there. But I just wanted to tell you one real quick story. Rudy, Kobe, and I, and Jeff McBride, and Ian were at a Burger King in the parking lot of Play Talks. Remember that story? I don't know if it's still there. We went in there, and Rudy was going to show us all how to make the Gene Anderson newspaper tear. And he had newspapers laid out on about 6 tables in Burger King. plus some coat hangers and glue, for those of you who don't know, I'm getting to the point. And Ian looked at Rudy and said, "Are you sure this is okay, we're tying all these tables up?" And Rudy said, "Yeah, I know the manager. Don't worry about it, we're good." Here comes the manager a couple minutes later, walked right up to Ian for whatever reason, and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, Rudy said it's okay." He said, "I don't know Rudy, who's Rudy?" Rudy said, "Me." He said, "I don't know you, get this crap," he used a different word, "and get out of here." And I still remember Ian standing there looking at him, walking out, shaking his head, saying, "I thought you knew the guy." Rudy said, I don't know. So, but there was a lot of stories because I would pick Ian and Rudy and Jeff weren't old enough to drive. I don't think Rudy can still drive. Because Rudy's out there. I don't know if he ever got his driver's license, but I would pick them up many times and take them down to Tannen's. We'd hang out in Tannen's all day at the magic shop in New York. That was the place. And then when I got transferred down here in '95, I hooked up with Ian again. And it's been a real pleasure, and I'm sorry for what happened, and he was a good friend of mine, so thank you.
I also spent my youth on North Street in Middletown at the magic shop with all those guys doing magic. I think it was Jeff McBride who first showed me how to make a silk disappear, and I think I told him that that's not how Daddy does it. And he's like, whatever, this is how I do it. So if any of you know Jeff, that's kind of how it goes. There are, well, I'm going to take a break from telling stories and let my husband come up for a minute.
Thank you all for coming. I'm David, Ian's son-in-law. I wanted to share this story because it always brings a chuckle every time we talk about it. It was the time that I came home with Rachel, and we had talked around Christmas time about getting engaged and getting excited. And I said, "Well, wait for me to ask you. We're going to do the formal thing." And we went. I did the crazy thing of getting engaged at Disney World. You know, I mean, got to follow the flow of what everybody would love to do. And come home that night, and it was probably about 1 in the morning, and everybody's in bed. So the next evening, we decide to share that we got engaged. And so we're sitting at the table, and I said, "Hey, basically, hey, we're getting married." And Ian looked right at me, and he goes, "What if I don't want you to?" And Mom, without missing a beat, turns around, smacks him right in the chest, and says, "You behave." And so we always got a chuckle thinking, and that's how Dad was. I mean, everybody coming up and telling stories. I mean, you had to appreciate his sense of humor. Anybody knew Ian. Sometimes it could be dry. And one of the funniest guys, I mean, not only that, but being a magician's magician, and me being the lay person when it comes to magic, I was always bugging him. "Teach me how that works. Teach me how that works." And of course, being the true magician, he would never give away the secret. Very fortunate to learn a couple tricks that I could perform, but anybody who's watched him, I mean, it was magical. I mean, that's the only way to describe him doing magic. And I would just sit there in awe every time. I mean, he'd do it right in front of me, and I'd sit there and just stare. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. And he would do things for me to intentionally see, and it would drive me crazy because I could still never figure it out. No matter how many times he did it in front of me, I never could figure it out. And I'm glad I don't know how to do it. That made it all the more better to watch and be inspired. And I'll miss that. I'll miss that more than I think I can convey right now. That and his sense of humor. We joked that Dad could be a thorn in people's side, but that was my thorn in my side, and I wish he was still here to be that thorn in my side. But again, thank you all for coming. Thank you for sharing.
Dad's sense of humor was legendary. As a little kid, my sister and I never knew what was really happening and what was some special effect that Dad was trying out. And I can remember coming out of my bedroom different times in our house in New York, and there would be flash and bangs and pops because he was trying out some little explosive effect, and it was like, "Oh, okay, I'm so glad that you know that I'm coming out of my bedroom in the morning because you rigged it with firecrackers. That's awesome, Dad." And then there were things like I walked out of the bedroom one morning and it was dark in our big hallway playroom area, and I see something flying around. And I think, well, that's just something of Dad's, right? And I'm like, Dad, what the heck do you have flying around in the playroom? He's like, I don't have anything flying around in the playroom. I'm like, Dad, come on, of course you do. I just saw it in there. And he's like, well, maybe I better come see it. Well, it was a bat. But I was convinced, like, of course, that's just Dad doing something. Because that's what it was like. You just never knew what he was going to be trying out, what was going to be happening. So there was a lot that I didn't always take stuff seriously at first because it could just be Dad, and I didn't want to be, I didn't want to kind of be caught in it. I wanted to be like, oh yeah, whatever, Dad, that's just you. So I always tried to be cool and not act surprised or get freaked out by things, and that probably, doesn't always serve me well because maybe I should be worrying about it. I think that I probably will still think that he's playing tricks on me when I see things, and we'll have to remember that that may or may not be him. Would anybody else like to come up?
Yeah, I have.
Please.
Yes, my name is Jim Moody, but several years ago we had a group of us, most of us are here, it's called the Magic Roadshow. And we went around and did shows at different communities and stuff, and there was 5 or 6 of us, and we did an hour-and-a-half show. Ian in his show used to have a big spittoon load-up bowl, and it was all beat up and dent, and he had this little European duck that he would sit on the load-up bowl. That's what the magicians call it. It's like a big spittoon, and it would sit on the floor, and every 10 minutes or so, Ian would go over and empty it out, pour it out, and set the duck, a European duck. And he did that a half a dozen times. Going over some people's heads, but anyway, he did that. I'll say it one more time. It's a European duck, and it would sit on the spittoon, and then every 5 minutes, 10 minutes or so, he would go over and empty it out, and that was the magic part of it, okay? Because it was a European duck. And okay, after the show's over, and I get a call at night. He said, "Did you see my duck?" And I said, "No." And I think he called everybody in the show, trying to find out what happened to it. This went on for several days, and I thought somebody had hid it from him, but they didn't. What actually happened was that he left it there at the show backstage, and he had to go over there, and he did get it, and they had kept it for him and everything, but there was his European duck, and he couldn't find it. I know a lot of you people are saying tricks. That this is a pet peeve of mine. Dogs and seals do tricks. I don't want to make light of this, but we came up with a new term. It's called a conjuring presentation. But magicians do effects, magic effects, and legerdemain, prestidigitation. And everybody calls it tricks. And I've been on a campaign since I've been president of the club to get everybody away from saying the word tricks. And Chuck Smith, a member of the club, is here this evening or today, and he came up with the term at a magic convention the other day over in Tampa. We were over there, and he said, let's call it a conjuring presentation instead of a trick. CP for short. That's all I have. I just wanted to share that about the European duck. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Would anybody else like to come forward?
I'm Maria. I'm Ian's sister-in-law. And I know most of this has been all about his magic presentation. And I want to share that Ian was one of the most loving people that I have ever met. And sometimes I feel that there weren't enough people in the world for him to share his love with. I mean, when you just look at some of those pictures, the way his cheeks would almost explode with love when he smiled. He loved his mother when he would come to our house, and he'd spend, a couple of weeks. He did a photography thing for a while when he would go around taking pictures of churches or different organizations, and he'd spend a lot of time at our house, and Mom would come over at the time, and he loved his mother. He really did. It was more than just a love of, wow, the father died so young, and you raised the three of us, and it was more, there was just such genuine love that came from Ian. He loved his wife, he loved his daughters, he even loved, but he loves his grandson. He loved his grandson so much, always talking about it. And I feel that whatever bad points Ian had, it just all stemmed from love. It was just, he needed to express and say and do certain things, and people may have looked at it as a negative thing, but it all stemmed from love. And I often thought, maybe he has all of these extra animals because he needs more people and things to show love to. And I will never forget how caring he was to me and my family and my boys, and he would bring them to his magic presentations. And he would, the magicians are so, even, who's that famous one? Burton?
Yeah.
And he would honor Ian. He was like, the magician of all magicians is coming in, and he's like, I love to show you boys that, Maria, And it was such a great honor, and he took such pride, but it wasn't a selfish pride, it was a love. It was a love for what he did, and a love the way he expressed it. And I will never be the same, because this was one generous, caring, loving man. And I know, Lynn, that, you're looking, at some years ahead, but you're stronger. You're stronger than you think. And I know that because of the love and the time that he spent with you, that, and you have a great family and a lot of friends. This room is packed. I mean, this man touched a lot of people. And I just had to share that, because that was one loving man. And I think God really blessed him and blessed us with him.
I'm glad Maria touched on my dad's capacity to love. He set a great example for that. My parents' love story was pretty amazing. They met very young. My dad had a coffee house called Ian's World, and I always like to say that it's always been Ian's world, and we all were just living in it. And he always said to me from a very young age, and it was apparent that he was crazy about my mother. And it was obvious. His son rose and set by my mom. And he said to me that is what I want for you. You need to find a guy who's going to be crazy about you. And that's what I told him about Dave, because, like most fathers, especially a Jewish father, nobody was going to be good enough for his girls. So, the fact that he had Sarah home with him with Aiden was absolutely awesome, and it was a big point of contention that I wouldn't bring my husband home to the farm to live also.
It was really crowded there.
It was getting a little crowded. Dad's like, we can build you a house too. Thanks, Dad, but we're good up in Tallahassee. But he, that was a big thing. I had to find someone who was going to be crazy about me. So I had to assure him up until the night before the wedding, because he came to me and he, there was a lot that he had to decide was okay, because I got married in a Catholic church. And so that beyond there was, I was doing a big wedding, I was doing it in a Catholic church. What on earth was I thinking? What was all this about? And, and of every step of the way, because my dad always had ideas, it was, why are you doing it this way? We could do it that way. You could have a backyard wedding. That's what your mother and I had. So it was a thing. And the night before the wedding, we went to the rehearsal. We had a rehearsal dinner. My dad performed at the rehearsal dinner and did a great magic show for everyone. Dave's relatives are still talking about it. And then we go back to the hotel. We had a big block of hotel rooms, and we're all hanging out, drinking late into the night. Not like we have to get up and do a wedding the next day, because family gets together, we're going to stay up and talk. And he takes me outside and says, I just want you to know that if you are not sure about this, we can go tonight. You just say the word. He's like, we'll get in the car and go, and you don't have to explain to anybody. And I said, Dad, I'm in. I'm all in. And he's like, all right. He's like, I just wanted to give you that out. Like, thank you, Daddy. So always, you know, he always had his girls back. You know, I knew that if I needed something, I could call him. I had a fight with my sister one time. She was doing stuff that just made me so unhappy. I wanted her to move home, and I wanted her to be safe. And she was arguing with me on the phone, and my dad walked up. She was working at one of the businesses, and my dad walked up, and he's like, "Who are you talking to?" "I'm talking to my sister." And he's like, "Give me the phone." And she hands him the phone, and I'm sobbing on the other end because I've been fighting with Sarah. And he's like, "Well, what are you fighting about?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not supposed to tell you. She doesn't want you to know." He turns to her. "You better tell me." So she tells him, and he's like, "All right, what do I need to do to make this right?" So I say, "I want her to move back home." And he's like, "All right, well," and he tells Sarah, "What do you need to move back home?" And she's like, "Well, I'm trying to make money to do this. I need a car, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Done." He's like, "I'll buy you a car. We'll go get it. You're moving back home. Make your sister stop crying." So he turns to me on the phone and says, "Is that good?" I said, "It's great, Dad. Thank you." So, you know, whatever he had to do to make sure his girls were okay, he was going to do it. So, definitely, my dad had a very, very big heart. Anybody else? We have a video that we'd like to show. And after the video, we're inviting everyone to come back to the farm. And let's see if I can get the address right.
1932 County Road 564.
1932 County Road 564. There will be family members around to give better directions after we show the video. Dave, go ahead and let's roll tape.